Hi everyone, welcome to the adjudicator test for dissension PD 20. The motion we have today is that the House opposes the use of fasting as a method of rallying for policy change by elected officials. We now present the first speaker from side government.
Respected adjudicators, the first thing we have to understand is the question under consideration because the question is a really, really old one. When you have diversity, when you have a group of people with differing ideals and opinions, when you have to create a common law for them, what sort of mechanisms do you allow in your system to create this discourse? How do you decide on what law everyone should follow and who gets to decide that? Now, after a very, very long while, after a lot of conflicts and problematic government types, what has won out is the democratic system. And I'm going to lay out why. The democratic system involves the people of a specific geographical region choosing representatives that represent their own self-interests, that can represent those interests in a common platform of discourse. That common platform of discourse contains voices from all pertinent regions, and that leads to a common law upon which everyone can agree. This not only creates good policy decisions, but also allows people to iron out bad policy decisions through no other process than free speech, discourse, disagreement, and debate. This is intrinsic to a peaceful mechanism where people can truly coexist with each other. Today's question asks, can fasting be allowed the same station? So can our elected officials be allowed to fast and get their way whenever they want? We tell you that they cannot because it fundamentally disagrees with values that have been chosen for very good reasons, because fasting as a method commits mistakes that we must learn from history to overcome. What is fasting? Why is it done in this case? Fasting here means letting go of sustenance, saying I won't eat food or drink water or some variation on that until I get my demands fulfilled. It's a juvenile tantrum like behavior which asks everybody to just give in, because if you don't, then I'm going to harm myself. And because nobody wants people to be harmed, people will just give in. Why can't this be a legitimate way for elected officials to create policy and rally people's support? Because it has no content in it. It has no true decision making power. Why? What the only impetus that it creates is a sensationalized, irrational impetus that only gains people's sympathy because people have basic humane empathy and respect for life for other people. It is not a form of discourse. You cannot go to a person who's fasting and ask him what he's talking about, because all that person really wants is that you give in and give up, because he's not going to stop until you do. Fasting as an enterprise forfeits our trust in the entire democratic project and the value of discourse altogether. Anyone can fast, no matter how good or bad your idea is, no matter how many people it will harm, no matter how little it will benefit, no matter how misguided it is, or no matter how many times you have been disproved. Every time you bring up a rational reason to the person who's fasting, it's not going to work, simply because he's not engaging in rational discourse. What he has created is a black and white fallacy. Either you give in to what I'm saying, or else you go out and other people are going to give in to what I'm saying. Either I'm going to die, or other people are going to do what I want. This is not behavior becoming of an elected official. Moreover, Consider a situation where fasting is a norm. Let's say that we agree that fasting is an appropriate way of rallying policy change. Say there are two opposing parties, the government and the opposition, and both are fasting. Both of them say that if I don't get my way, then I'm going to kill myself. How do you reconcile that difference? There is no way to do it, because fasting as an enterprise does not distinguish between good and bad ideas. Now, keeping that in mind, how can we actually reconcile that difference? How can we actually carry out the legislative process, the executive process in a way that makes sense and is honest to the responsibilities of and powers of an elected official? It is the democratic project as it was described in the beginning of my speech. It has to be that elected officials engage in discourse through proper channels, honestly represent the views of their constituents, and when it is required, broker compromise so that common welfare and common ideals can be preserved peacefully. What Understand that an elected official, because he is elected, has available to him a large amount of powers that are given to him for the explicit reason to enable him to create discourse. He has platforms, he has availability in the media, he has social media handles which he can address to, he has governmental channels that are not open to the public. Along with all of that, when he gives up the even after having all of that, if he decides and gives up on democratic discourse, understand that he's not only giving up on the possibility of compromise, but also giving up on every duty and responsibility that has been bestowed upon him by the people through the democratic enterprise. He is giving up his governorship. He is giving up his he's neglecting his responsibilities. He is failing to communicate with his colleagues and failing to participate in government, the very basic duty for which he was elected. uh, the side government believes that such an elected official has no right to remain elected, that he is not fit to be described as an elected official because he has failed in every single way that matters. We believe that the shallow and farcical rallying cry that might be created as a point of any discourse is far too small a benefit for sacrificing all of this. Thank you.
We will now hear the arguments by the opposition leader.
Dear adjudicators, the Honorable Prime Minister has given a beautiful description of an ideal democratic setup. We agree that in a democracy, a discourse between the opposition and the government is bound to happen. But the question is, does the diplomatic channel that the Prime Minister has so efficiently put forward as his addressing mechanism, does that channel through solving discourse through parliamentary debate, is this viable in each and every scenario? Because what we believe is the paradigm that the government is enforcing upon you is a very ideal democratic setup. It does not happen at all. It does not happen always like that. Let's look closer to home. Let's look at the present scenario in India, where the central government has a full-fledged majority and the opposition is powerful and has literally no voice. All that is happening in the parliament is just a mere formality, as it was very much visible in the recent parliamentary debates about farm bill. So as you all would have known that the government, so that a whole all the farmers are against the farm bills, against the very the very the very portion of the population for whose reform the government wanted to pass these farm bills. The whole they are actually against it. But what we have seen in this what we have seen is that the opposition had no voice because they could not do anything. They could not stop the government from passing the very laws, that harm the very people who are being which is being masqueraded as a law which actually supports them. We agree with the prime minister that in a democracy setup, an elected leader is bound to is supposed to voice the opinion of the of the people who have elected him. But what happened in an authoritarian setup where he has no voices, he has become powerless. So in that way, his the as we saw this parliamentary, this channel of addressing grievance through a parliamentary debate was not at all feasible because the opposition was toothless. So the prime minister says that in our paradigm, fasting leads to expressing dissent leads to a very black and white sort of scenario. But what actually happened in their scenario, the government is only enforcing the black. There is no other option. There is no dissent. There is no discourse. There is honest. There is the voices of the opposition are not heard. So where does so in this scenario, what the opposition needs to do, the only tool that the opposition has to change the public narrative, and it has to get the support of the public. Because as we saw, the government passed laws which were against a particular section of the community, and that community, the farmers, were not being able to be represented by the opposition. So this is just one example. This in general, in such scenario, the opposition has to get the backing of the public, get the backing of the very same people who elected them. So this is where the concept of protest coming. But as we all have seen, the concept of protest can lead blow out of proportion. But this is where fasting comes in. Now, as defined by the prime minister, fasting is what we believe, that fasting is a very peaceful way to attract attention. It is, and it adheres to the Gandhian ideals of non-violence. Fasting is a very effective way, as history as we have seen through various examples in history. The most famous of them being the hunger strike of a person, a common man known as Poti Sriramullu, whose fast until death actually led to the formation of a state of Andhra Pradesh. And as it happened at that time, the central government did not want to heed to the demands of the they were completely neglecting the demand of the people, of the population of Andhra Pradesh. And it was a person who had to fast, who had to actually die, because he was motivated enough for this cause. He had to die. He had to fast until to be able to let the government act, get some light upon this act. Similarly, we all know the example of Iram Sharmila, who fasted for 16 years, just, and it is due to own it is due to her own efforts. It is due to her own efforts that the there a public narrative was created against that, how the Armed Forces Special Act is actually against human rights violation. So what I mean to say is that fasting is a very effective way. It is a very effective way to actually address, create a public narrative. And these were just the common people. So what happens when a elected representative who is powerless because of the authoritarian government decides to sit in a fasting? It actually presents himself that how he is more accountable to the public. He actually shows that he is the leader. He's acting as a responsible leader. He's not just a puppet who if he is not able to address his voice in the parliament, that does not mean that he will just sit and watch. He will actually go to the ground root and lead by example, by sitting on fasting. Now, the go- so how fasting so this is why we emphasize that fasting is a very effective and a non-violent way to express a dissent against the government. Because the what the understand adjudicators that the what the prime minister portrayed was a very ideal scenario where the opposition and the government could engage. But what is currently happening in this country, that there is actually no platform for the opposition to actually engage with the government, because the government is so strong, it always suppresses the voice of the opposition. So, and the the futile assumption of the prime minister that a person can just sit on fast whenever he wants, that is very juvenile on his part. Because what we believe that as we have clearly said, as I have clearly said in my last example, that it is actually a last resort, because when after an elected representative has failed to raise the concern of the people in the parliament, he has no other option rather other than fasting. So it is actually a last resort. He has tried everything, he has done everything in his power to do what he could have done, but the government didn't listen to. He had to mobilize the public in a form of a peaceful protest, which leads to a public conscience of what is happening. And similarly, we saw that the politic how politicizing these fasting was very evident during the fasting of Anna Hazare, which ultimately led to the formation of Aam Aadmi Party. And my DLO will elaborate more on that.
Uh,
Thank you.
we will now hear the arguments by the Deputy Prime Minister.
Panel, first of all, I'll be talking about the fact that how this particular method of using fasting by elected officials as an instrument to put their voice across for policy change is something which is principally wrong. And secondly, I'll be talking about how, on harms we benefits, this debate is particularly revolving and something which the proposition tends to win. Now, talking about how something like fasting is principally wrong, Kanav elucidated upon the fact that this particular use of fasting by an elected official is something which represents farcical leadership, something which represents that you as a person, as a leader, have particularly failed. At that point of time, we feel that when a leader has an entire democratic process, has an entire process of redressal, at that point of time, if he still goes ahead with something like fasting, which is uh, a very problematic sort of scenario to actually take forward, that particularly is is something which is principally wrong. Secondly, when we talk about, even if we agree whatever notion with the side opposition is giving to us and debate on a harms we benefits metric, we'll talk to you about the constructives which we have and particularly elucidate upon them. The first constructive which we have is the constructive about the value of discourse, which we are actually trying to create over here at this point of time as the government, when we actually allow something like fasting being used as a method of rallying. We feel fasting is something which is an implicit form of coercion at the end of the day. It is something which is actually used at the end of the day by people to coerce into decisions, and it actually spoils the entire rationality of the decision. Something like fasting is directly attached to the emotional sentiment of people. We feel that when we heard the speech given by the leader of opposition, I'll take it in the fifth minute. When we had the speech given by the leader of opposition about the fact that these methods of fasting have a huge public appeal, we feel at that point of time it becomes a very problematic scenario to actually go ahead and allow something like this, which is entirely premised on an emotional appeal rather than the rationality of decisions. At that point of time, we feel if at all we're actually creating an entire democratic setup where the entire sort of audience is taking decisions, taking electoral decisions just premised on an emotional sentiment, at that point of time we sort of give rise to a very negative domino in terms of rationality of decisions which are inculcated in the entire country and the entire setup. Secondly, if at all we look at the public appeal of these sort of elected individuals, these individuals are actually widely heard and widely sort of influenced by the youth of the nation. These are actually used as examples by the youth of the nation, and we feel that sort of creates a very negative mindset inside the youth that whenever they want to sort of systematically dismantle the entire hierarchical structure, they need to follow methods of coercion. And we feel that is the reason why something like fasting and something like what you may call using violent means is internalizing in the entire setup and the entire status quo that we have right now. Secondly, there are two things which we feel an elected official particularly needs to sort of be wary of. First of all, he needs to understand the fact that the particular responsibility of his health is something which is not only his individual responsibility, but his entire health sort of influences the function of the entire state. For that matter, if at all Arvind Kejriwal right now goes to protest and sort of that protest, the entire fasting results in a negative effect on his health, we can't really afford to have someone like Arvind Kejriwal in the ICU for a month, and at that point of time leaving the entire politics of Delhi in jeopardy. We feel there is a huge responsibility which these sort of leaders are condoning when they practice something like fasting, and that is very problematic to sort of propagate or allow at that point of time. Secondly, we feel it's some sort of a blackmail, some sort of a coercion at the end of the day. You can't really, sort of still say that yeah, he fasted, and yeah, you still expect people to actually take decisions based on rationale. For that matter, if at all a person goes out there and sort of, tells people that I'm fasting for a particular decision, the message which is sent across is not that Kejriwal is fasting for XYZ reason. The message that is sent across is that Kejriwal is fasting and that he might die, and that is the major influencing factor. And at that point of time, we feel that is something which influences the entire decision making process, because these things have a huge appeal, have a huge mark on the minds of the youth, and it's something which is sort of followed and taken forward in the entire scenario. Secondly, there is a huge misassumption which we see from the side of opposition for that matter. The huge misassumption that the entire majority is always wrong. We feel if at all at this point of time in the entire electoral setup, we have a majority, we have a proper majority wherein a lot of these seats are given to one particular political party. At that point of time, we feel that is because of a reason. That is because we have institutionalized, and they have sort of got there because we elected them. We are the person who actually elected them, that yeah, we want that particular amount of majority because they give us that rationale, because they actually represent our interests. And we feel that the entire case of the side opposition is something which is based on farcical assumptions for that matter. I'll take your question, Ananya.
Rahul, you said that this is a form of coercion. Could you please specify how fasting
Taken.
specifically is a form of coercion, or do you are you against protest altogether because they are just a way of public voicing their opinions and coercing the government?
Thank you, Ananya, for the question. So, particularly when we look at the form of coercion which I'm talking about, we are not really against vocalized protest where you're actually contesting on words, where you're actually talking it out, and where you're actually open to a proper, sense of discourse. That is where the constructive regarding value of discourse comes into place. But we feel the moment you use something like violence, something like fasting, wherein you actually have a direct threat to life, which is sort of pictorially present right there, at that point of time, that influences the entire emotional sentiment, and that is problematic in the status quo. Secondly, lastly, if at all we look at the entire case of the side opposition, it's entirely based on absolutes. The absolute that the entire majority is something which is not working well, the absolute that the minority is someone who's always going to take the right decision, the absolute that fasting is always going to be the last resort, that yeah, there'll be responsible leadership out there, and the absolute that we actually have a problem in the entire institutionalized setup that we have right now. We feel whatever opinion with the side opposition have are something which are entirely premised on just hearsay and just like logical gaps which they bring to us in the entire in their entire case. And because the side opposition's leader is not able to sort of give us any constructive which actually the deputy leader of opposition can accentuate or actually venture out, it's too late for the deputy leader of opposition to salvage their case. Very, very proud to propose.
We will now hear the arguments by the deputy leader of the opposition.
Panel, understand that whenever we are discussing this motion, these are two aspects that need to be considered. First is, should elected officials be rally for policy change, and second is that is fasting is a good way to do that. Now, are we saying that the people who are in power should go and rally around? No. What we are trying to tell you is that whenever there is a situation which stands currently as India is, opposition does not really have a lot of hold as to what they're trying to say. When government has the sort of majority where they can pass any bill that they want to, there should be a channel for the opposition to be able to voice their opinions, to be able to put forward their points which are in relevance to the same people who chose these people as representatives. This is the moral high ground that these elected officials will have to set for themselves. When the DPN comes and tells you that the opposition is taking a very absolute terms, when he comes and tells you that we are telling you that the legal or the entire structure of democracy is failing, or the majority is always right, always wrong, and opposition is always right. No, sir, that is absolutely not the case. We totally believe in what democracy stands for. We totally believe in that if India has chosen this form of government, it must be right. What we are trying to tell you is that there is always a scope of error in everything that you do. Understand that India is a very diverse country, which comes from where people come from a lot of backgrounds, from a lot of distinctions based on caste, culture, religion, and whatnot. At that point of time, it becomes fairly necessary for you to understand that a lot of people are getting affected by that one decision you make. And it is very important that if there is only one, even if there is a smaller section of the society, they do get their due recognition, they do get their voices heard. Now, when you say that this is a form of coercion, no, sir. Neither is fasting nor any form of protest, any form of coercion. Understand that when people are forced to come down to streets, when they're forced to actually stand on themselves, stand themselves to have to voice their opinions, it must be something drastic. And fasting gives you the least resistant, the least violent way of expressing your opinions. Other than that, understand, if the elected official, if the opposition does not take a stand, if the opposition does not understand the people, understand that any bill that is passing is affecting a lot of people at once, and they do not take a stand about it, what actually is going to happen is it's going to become very chaotic, because people themselves will come to street whenever they feel that their needs are not getting listened to. It's not coercion, it's just that we want the other side, which is the government, to come and sit on a table where our needs, where our demands are also discussed. Now, when Rahul comes and tells you that whenever there is an emotional component attached to everything, and there is an emotional component, and the entire public would work on the emotional one instead of the rational one, understand that this emotional component is embedded in every single step of democracy. Either it's the legislative process, or it's the way that these leaders take election. What do you think whenever there is a bill getting passed in the parliament? Is it only based upon rationality and the best of people? No, it's not. There is a lot of politics revolving around it. It's not only for the best interest of the people, but also 100 other factors that we people sitting as public would not understand. And that is why we need elected officials to give us that inside picture for us, because for us the picture is very different from what actually is happening inside. Now, why do these elected officials need to come out? Why do they need to voice their opinions? Because, and giving the same example as Rahul did, whenever if Kejriwal has to come down to road to voice his opinions, when he has to tell you that okay, we want, this is something that is impeding our ability to make decisions, because Delhi is not a state, because these are the factors which are getting involved, which are inhibiting our capability to serve you the best, then, and he does not have the required percentage, or he does not have the required support in the legislation, it becomes very important for him to gather that public support, to be able to show that okay, it's something that this is something that I'm vouching for, and this is something that stands in the interest of the people that I'm working for. He's working for the same people he is going for fasting, right? When you say that people will just blindly follow him, no, that does not happen, sir. Whenever somebody is vouching for something, you actually would, as a rational citizen, look into what this person is saying, if or not that thing aligns with your own opinion. Now, for people who do not have the kind of influence, for example Kejriwal, it becomes very necessary for them to come down to that platform. Now, Rahul said that the two examples that the LO gave do not really stand, because of the fact that these were common people and not common officials and not elected officials. Understand, when the opposition fails, in the sense that they are not able to represent these people better, these people also come into the category of common people, because they themselves are as powerless as a common person would be. If I just had 10 seats out of 100 and the bill is either way is going to get passed, I also stand powerless, and I will have to come down to the level of a common citizen, because as the representative of the constituency that I'm representing, it becomes very necessary for me to take a higher moral ground, to be able to function, to be able to perform my duties the way that it was designed to be. Yes, Kanav, I'll take your POI.
Taken.
Considering that it's completely possible to be heard but your opinion not be passed into law, what exactly is your metric for deciding that the opposition doesn't have a voice in the discourse, when considering they make so much noise in our country?
So understand, like, what are you saying when you say voice? Are you asking about the people, or is it actually about actionable things that are happening? See, in a debate, I can also come around, speak for 7 minutes with no value, with nobody, like, come around, let's say the next three speakers do not even consider what I spoke. What do I do in that case? Maybe my points were logical, but they just thought that, okay, let's just siden them out because they do not have the kind of power. Understand that this is basic human psychology. When you see somebody with no power, you are bound to give their opinions a lesser priority than a person who does have that power to bring that into action. These are normal things to understand. This is not particular to politics. And also, when you in your speech yourself said that a person who's coming in and not able to perform, where he has to go to the level of fasting, and you painted him as a failure as a democrat. No, sir, this is actually him taking responsibility. Understand that somebody who comes down to risking his own life for the benefit of people is a very drastic step in itself. When the proposition comes and tells you that anyone can go fasting, no, sir, no, everyone does not have the courage to sit down to be able to make that commitment that, okay, if this something does not see the light of day, it might risk my life or health in the longer run. This requires a lot of courage, which comes only when the person is devoted to the people he is serving, and that in itself validates that the person who's taking that responsibility, is vouching for something that is legitimate, and he's not actually just roaming around and keeping his points, as you said. This is a grave issue. You're treating it with a very lightish behavior. It's a very hard decision to make, that yes, okay, you're gonna sit along with a lot of people and risk your own life for it. Proud to oppose. Thank you.
Alright. Adjudicators, first of all, I'll talk about some problems and inconsistencies in the side opposition's case, and then I'll move ahead and talk about our case and tell you why we deserve to win this debate by a huge margin. Adjudicators, please note that this side opposition has been running a case that has been very, what do I say, circumstantial, a case that has been very much based on assertion and assumptions, the case that is very much absolute in nature. They try to paint a picture of a government, they try to paint a picture of an opposition which is very, very narrowed down. They try to tell you that there's this opposition that somehow makes decisions that is always morally correct. They somehow makes policies that is always morally correct, and that is why those policies need to be implemented. They come up and tell you how there's this concept of an evil government that will always create policies that are not for the greater good of this society, that are not for the greater good of the country. All right, which we feel is something that is very a assertive, and be something that is very absolute in nature, very radical in nature, and very not definitely not true in nature. Because well, adjudicators understand that when we choose a government, we choose them on their policy. If there's this certain particular political party, or there's this certain group of people who have been elected, who are running the government, they are running the government because their policies have assured the people of the nation that those are the policies that we want, those are the policies that will do the greater good for the nation. And that is why the policies that these people make will be better than the policies that this opposition will make. And this side opposition completely talks about how these policies that the opposing side of the government will make will be more practical, would be better, would be good for all, which we feel is something that is problematic, and they don't give us rights better or anything like that. Now, adjudicators understand that. I'll talk to you about the another thing is how they talk about this opposition that needs to be heard, how they talk about this opposition whose policy needs to be implemented. A, they talk about how this opposition will talk about make good policies, and B, how they talk about this policy that has to be implemented no matter what. They talk about how there's this urgent need to implement these policies, that a person can start fasting and do some sort of weird stuff like a juvenile, and like act like a kid, and who's like, all right, give me my candy or I won't have my dinner for tonight, which is not something that we feel is very uh, very okay. We very okay. We something that's very good for this nation, right? Because adjudicators understand that when we talk about a major policy change, what we expect before that policy change comes about, right? We expect the people of our nation to know about that policy. We expect both the sides, government and the opposition, to know about that policy, to know, all right, what's coming for them, or what is the structure, what is everything. You just can't expect a person to think, all right, either implement this, or I'll starve to that, or a group of people will starve to that. This sort of a behavior is not is simply caution, and this sort of a behavior is not something good that's good for a good democratic country, a country that has been based on the principles of democracy for so long. Or educators, please note that our country has been always a country that has come always believed in discourse, debates, and this good dual channel discussion that is there. Right? We never expect here's a sort of an argument. We'd never expect a policy that should be implemented just because a certain person wants that to be implemented, a certain group wants that to be implemented, whether that be the opposition or the government. All right, and what's happening in this sort of a scenario, in this sort of a paradigm, in opposition's paradigm, is exactly that. That opposition, that person from the opposition or that person is able to go through that narrative and like talk about implementing that policy just because he wants to implement that on the grounds that he won't eat or whatever bullshit, which we feel is very very problematic in nature. Educators, now I'll talk to you about our side of the house, what we present to you. Educators, please note that our side of the house presents to you a case that is very very coherent to our very structures of our country, to the very democracy that we follow. We always talk about this discourse, we always talk about this debate that we need. All right, we always talk about this dual channel conversation that we need, and that is something that's going to happen in our paradigm, where there won't be this stupid as acts of starving of fasting and everything like that, but actual acts of discourse and debate, which will actually bring about a change, which will actually educate people about what's good and what's wrong and what needs to be done. Educators, please note that what our side also proposes to you is the paradigm where there's this rationality taking over an emotional appeal. What happens inside opposition's case is they come up and tell you, "Okay, all right," what happens inside opposition's case is that there's this particular elected official who just goes ahead and starts fasting and everything like that, does this sort of a juvenile protest, and like this actually makes the people who are makes our innocent people of our nation attach emotional value to that person. They feel that, all right, this person is fasting for my greater good. Maybe that not might be the greater good, but yeah, this person is fasting for the greater good, my greater good. No matter what, I should support him. And this is something that is very problematic in nature. We want people to support, we want policies to be implemented solely based on facts, arguments, discourse, and debates, and not some stupid ass acts a person commits just to gain some political benefit out of it, or whatever it is. Because educators, that is how a democracy is run, when there is this conversations, when there are this debates, when there's this discourse. Educators, please note that these people, these elected officials, they are not superheroes or something, right? They are these normal people. They are these normal people who are like us, who are very probable to get sick. All right, they are these people who are 40, 50 years of age, who might have chronic health conditions like diabetes, like blood pressure, which is very very problematic in this scenario. Because when a person does a fasting sort of an exercise for a day or two, his or her blood sugar levels will go down, that person's blood pressure levels will go down. And what happens when these sort of people get sick? All right, these people, these office bearers, are not some normal nobodies or like anybody, right? These people, their lives are not only theirs, but their lives influence the other people of our nation as well. They represent their constituencies, they represent thousands of people. And what happens when these people get sick is something uh, for blunder that we can't even imagine. All right, educators, please think of a scenario when Arvind Kejriwal goes to a hospital for 20 days. What would be the state of this of Delhi if something like that happens? And that is not something that we definitely want, right? We want our elected officials to stay healthy. We want them to make decisions, implement policies the right way, with discourse, talking to people, making people understand. And if they feel that there's something happening wrong, then we want those people of the opposition to criticize the government, to tell the people of our nation that it is wrong, and let those people decide for us that, all right, this policy should be implemented or not. Because a fasting sort of an argument, a fasting sort of an exercise is not nothing but coercion, is nothing but bullying the government into taking decisions that should not be taken, that should be taken, but only through proper discourse and through proper channels. And these people uh, should not do what they have been doing through fasting and everything, right? And that is why we are very proud to propose. Thank you.
Yes. Educators, I will start just like my fellow Vib did by first discussing the points where their arguments fell below ours and how we tend to take this debate. First of all, I'll talk about the speech given by the Whip. who has very conveniently just highlighted his DPM speech and chosen to ignore the speech given by our DLO Ananya, wherein we clearly stated and clearly denied that we are not going on any absolutes, such as that the minority is always right or that the majority is always wrong, and many such that they listed again and again and again. Now, I'd like to talk about the fact and the hypocrisy in the part of not just the web of the government, but even the whole proposition side, wherein they paint a picture of us using absolutes and then to support their argument, give us even more absolutes, just like the whip did in his speech, saying the majority will always make good decisions because they were voted into power. That death is often the end result of every fast, and have conveniently ignored that not all fasts are to the death. Sometimes fasts are just done to highlight a problem. They are often limited to days. Then they also take this absolute saying that their uh, scenario and their points are bringing in this, they are holding up this, our country's historical and democratic principles and precedents. But if we were to actually go into our country's historical precedents and principles, fasting by our father of independence, Mahatma Gandhi himself, is what got our country independence in some way. So for them to say that this is a juvenile coercion is quite laughable because they tend to paint the picture of protesting as coercion so as to make themselves seem as the victim. Now I'll come into the points made by their DPM, that is Rahul, when he said that first of all, fasting and such methods mobilize on emotions and not rationality, and has somehow made it as if they are both mutually independent. We humans tend to be emotional animals. For us to completely remove emotional and rational aspects of any part of our life is impossible. So how do you expect politics to be to be the same? And this point was very well brought out by Ananya, who clearly stated these points itself. And then he goes on to completely rebut our examples of, say, Sri Ramalilu, who caused the formation of Andhra Pradesh, by saying that these examples don't hold in this debate because we are talking about elected officials. Whereas Ishan very clearly stated that these examples show that when common people fast and they can cause such a change, the elected officials who have such a big backing already, when they will fast, it shows, as Ananya very clearly stated, that they are actually involved. They are not just giving a speech and rallying troops and then sitting back easily. They are actually so desperate, so unable to actually use the tilted debating or these discussion platforms which the government says do exist, and are now unable to resort to anything else. And as clearly stated by the opposition again and again, that this is not something we resort to all the time. This is the last resort when all other forms of discussion, debate, and voting fails, and the opposition is not able to make the government understand that the bills they are passing or the laws they're passing or the decisions they're making are actually not beneficial for the voters and the public that they are leading them to believe in. Now, Rahul said that when people use fasting and such forms of coercion to mobilize people, it is because it is mobilizes based on emotion and not rational, and that it becomes about, say, Arvind Kejriwal dying and not about the problem itself. But let me take the example brought out by my by my LO, who the farmer bill example. Not all farmers are, say, Arvind Kejriwal supporters. Some farmers may have voted for BJP itself. But when BJP creates such a law and the opposition opposes it, if these farmers want to support the Congress, they have no love for the leaders of the Congress. They won't go about it emotionally. They'll see that the bill they're opposing is actually bad, and through a rational thinking, end up supporting it. What fasting does is not create a form of death threat or coercion, but rather highlights the problem which sometimes may be overshadowed by the government, which, as as very well works in our democracy, has the majority and can tend to do so. Now, Kanaf said that this is a very childish response, wherein everything is either do go my way or I will die. But I think it's quite foolish of them to say so, because every last resort ends up being simple. A last resort is an act of desperation, is a last hurrah. Like, because when we have exhausted all other options, do we resort to such things? So last resorts often tend to be simple, and simple things are often mistaken as juvenile. And in this case, the proposition has done the same and is not very surprising, considering they started their argument by painting a very utopian picture of democracy where every forum for discussion and every forum for argument is quite open, fair, and not tilted at all in the majority's favor. Now, yes, Rahul also tended to say that, also brought up the point that other forms of protesting are better than fasting, and there are other more peaceful forms of protesting, etc. And then completely trying to deny that fasting should not be taken as any kind of protest, and as the House opposes it, they should, in fact, even ban any political official or any elected official from fasting. But what people forget is that once the elected officials end up exhausting every other option in the parliament and every other uh, legal or say government course of discussion, they too become, as very clearly pointed out by Ananya, just as powerless as the common citizen. And our democracy itself says that every citizen has the right to protest. And fasting is very legitimately, as said by historical precedents, a form of protesting. And in fact, even the most peaceful form of protesting. Because rallying, coming to the streets, even peaceful sittings can end up turning violent on the brink of a hat because of, say, police involvement, because of, say, agitation, because of many other reasons which I need not even list. But fasting creates a precedence wherein the only one actually suffering is the person going through it and ends up highlighting the problem too. So it becomes one of the most efficient, least harmful, and one of the best ways to show that someone cares and that there is a need to change something which has been set in the status quo. Proud to oppose.
Panel. The proposition comes in paints to you a very idealistic picture where they tell you that okay, if you have chosen democracy to be a way of choosing your representatives, you should just trust how it works. And they come and tell you that if an elected representative has to come down to the level of fasting, then that person has actually failed, and this is not a good way of propagation. And through their entire speeches, they come and tell you that how doing protest is a form of coercion and is something that they actually do not support. While we in opposition realize that although democracy might be the best form of government that we can think of, it still has a lot of drawbacks. We come and tell you that whenever there is a chance that in a country as diverse as India, we are not able to represent every section in a good way, and if some part of the society feels that they're not being considered, then they should have the right to be able to contest, to be able to to be able to really come around and voice their opinions. That is the only contention that we have, that it should not be that once you've chosen a government, you are just lying down your hands tied for the next 4 years. We want that there should be a sort of feedback mechanism. Now, why do we tell you to use fasting as that method of rallying? Because it is the most peaceful method in which you can do it. Now, Rahul and Arpan, they spin around the case, they come and tell you that keep fasting is a form of coercion and you are leading to one person risking his life. Sir, understand that in the longer run, if you're not representing a section, in the longer run, if there are protests which are going to be more violent than fasting is. If you're able, if we are able to mitigate that loss, we are able to come forward. If an elected official who was a part of the process is able to communicate to the public what the shortcomings were and how they can probably mitigate them, then what better could it be? Now, the proposition also takes the opposition's case. They come and tell us that we have been giving a lot of absolutes. No matter what rebuttals are given by the DLO, they still come around and they come and tell you that, okay, the opposition is dealing with a lot of absolutes, while we come around and give you a practical perspective. Whereas what they instead are doing is that they're saying that, okay, if you have elected a person, then you should trust him for 4 years. No matter what he does, you are not allowed to protest. They're telling you from the three speeches that they gave that the public should not come around, and because that is a form of coercion and government cannot really come around at a compromise. Now, what we come and tell you is that through these form of protesting, through fasting as a form of protesting or rallying, we are able to come around through a compromise because people are now sitting on the same table discussing those same issues. So now any part of the society which already felt neglected is now getting the due recognition that they wanted, and that too in a way that does not harm a lot of people. Again, what the opposition whip said, these protests are usually don't usually lead to deaths, right? These are timed protests. These are supposed to create a pressure on the government to come to the table. These are not supposed to make the government change their stance extremely because one person is going to die. Understand that if we do not do this, then there are going to be a lot of deaths either ways. That is something that the opposition has been reinstating all this time. Also, we come and tell you that there are people who are not, once they're not able to exert their influence into the legislation, they do come down to the common man's level, and hence it's needed for them to exert that public influence so that their voices are heard, so that what they were chosen for is something that is actually done, that is actually something that comes into action. That is why the opposition clearly states to win, because the proposition just plays around with the opposition opinion wherever it deems suit. They cut around pieces and tell us that okay, we are being absolutes, but what they are actually doing is creating an idealistic environment which actually never does exist. No matter how good form of government you are dealing with, it's always going to have drawbacks, and you have to create a system that actually addresses these issues. Proud to oppose. Thank you.
Panel, let's just try to understand what the entire case of side opposition is about. Their entire case is premised on the fact that we can't really trust the government, that the government has a propensity to take wrong decisions, and at that point of time, there is always this possibility of protest. And because fasting is the most peaceful form of protest which is present, we should actually advocate for something like fasting. So what do we contest on? Yeah, we give to you the fact that yeah, government, even which is a majority government, has a form of sort of propensity to take errors. However, the point being that even if they are sort of committing to errors, we do have certain mechanisms which are present at an elected state to sort of adhere to them vocally. So particularly if at all there is a bill which is being passed with majority in the parliament, it is for a reason, because the entire electoral process is framed as such that the popular narrative is with the popular party, and that is how it works. We don't really understand why this entire legislative process is something which is a problem. Which brings me to the concept and the entire like questioning of the case of the side opposition, because we can't really understand the fact if at all they're against the entire structure of a democracy, or are they just basically for fasting at the end of the day, because we are not really contesting, or we are not really condoning the concept of protest. We're talking about yeah, you give more forms of vocalized protest. However, the heart of the debate lies in the fact if at all fasting at the end is a form of coercion. If at all we look at the three speeches which are given by the side opposition, the underlying tone has always been about the fact that fasting is more about peace as compared to coercion. However, they don't really deny the fact of the element of death which is present over there. They give us random points which they actually term as absolutes. First of all, the entire problematic notion which the leader of opposition starts with when he talks about equating common people with electoral people. However, we do tell you, like right from the first speech, in terms of the definitional clarity of the motion, that we only contest on the fact when there is no redressal mechanism present over there. Then there is also what you may call certain points wherein that talk to us about that whatever they're debating on are not really absolutes, but all we get from them regarding that being assertions, random assertions which we don't really understand what they're trying to do. The opposition clearly fails to understand the fact that the trust of a government is like what you may call an entire building. Once you sort of get away with that block, you're actually trusting the entire decentralized setup of the entire government. If at all you're sort of poking holes in the entire structure at that point of time, if at all you're sort of making it entirely about the minority, this particular debate entirely about the minority, we don't really feel that they tend to win the debate. Because the fact is that if at all we look at the sort of compass of people, they're actually having a propensity of bringing about good, and it's really huge. It's really small as compared to what we are trying to talk about. All our entire, like the entire case of side government is premised on the fact that if at all there is a popular government, there is what you may call a majority government at the center. There's a reason why they're at the center. If at all BJP is actually making some rule regarding farmers' protests, they've actually discussed between the entire state governments which they're present in, and they feel that yeah, that is particularly necessary. If at all you want to sort of contest upon that, yeah, you have that sort of mechanism to contest upon that. There are protests which are happening. We don't really see a lot of sort of fasting happening while these protests are going on. Why do we have a problem with fasting? Fasting is merely a form of coercion at the end of the day because of the element of death which is present over there. We can't really reiterate more upon that topic. The entire concept of a feedback mechanism is something which is present out there, and it's something which is inclusive on both sides of the house. They fail to tell you any reason at all why fasting is mostly sort of exclusive at that point of time as compared to the other form of protest. We're vouching for vocalized protest, we're vouching for words, we're not vouching for coercion at the end of the day. All we get from them is what you may call farcical amalgamation of the entire political structure which we have over there. Secondly, an entire debate premise on what you may call exceptions at the end of the day, an entire sort of concept based upon the fact that the popular government is always going to take the wrong decision. Very, very proud to suppose.